Day 671 being Christopher Cruz. It is 5:18 p.m. I just got home from church. We're not doing night service anymore, so that means I have my Sunday nights back, which is amazing because I'm freaking tired. I only slept 4 hours because I was like up late last night, just excited, genuinely excited about life, and couldn't go to sleep. And so, yeah, I didn't sleep very much. And so I stopped at this little grocery store that sells like all this stuff like from like some organic stuff from farms, but it's like super cheap. And I talked to this guy a few weeks ago and talked about him documenting his life. And then I found out, because my roommate, that he goes to the church I go to, Fearless, but he hasn't been able to go for a while because of this job that he has, and he doesn't have Sundays off. And so we're having this conversation. He can finally start going. They just shifted his schedule, and now he can start going back to church. And he's excited for that. And so he and I are having this conversation, and I feel like a little antsy. You know, I feel like, you know, I'm trying to like get home. I'm trying to relax. I'm not trying to have a super long conversation. And so I can feel my antsiness. You know, when you're having a conversation with someone and you're just kind of like ready to end it, and he was like ready to keep it going. And my flesh wanted to just like leave. And then God was like, chill, listen to him. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of like, I let that go. And then he said something. The first thing he says is that, you know, it's hard living this kind of life, you know, and he's like, Jesus died for us and he asked us to die for him. And I was like, dang, that hit me, because it literally feels like the old me is dying. And when he said that, I really thought about, like, you know, we have to die for him just like he died for us. It's like we have to give up the things, you know, that we desired. We have to sacrifice our flesh. We have to kill our flesh and all the desires to sin and to pursue all these different things that actually hurt our spirits and our souls. And I was just like, wow, yeah, I feel like I'm going through a death process. Like the old me is dying and the new me is being rebirthed. And it's like, wow. It's like, dang, it's super powerful. And it's challenging. It's really hard to kill that old version of you, to kill that version of you that has desires to sin and do certain things. And I feel that way like right now, really, with like food. Like my flesh desires to eat bad and conveniently and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I got to kill that version of me. That version of me has to die. And it's a challenge. And so, yeah. Got stuff all over me from freaking lifting tables, sweeping floors. And so that was the first thing he said. And I was like, okay, dang, I need to listen. And then he mentioned the mustard seed. And the verse I read today was Jesus talking about the mustard seed, how it is the smallest seed, but it grows into the biggest plant. And when it grows, that's when birds come and nest in it. And I didn't really understand the bird's nesting part. Like I kind of had an idea, but I wasn't sure of it. And it's crazy because I sent a message today to Araceli talking about that verse. And then he made it clear. He was talking to someone from church, and she told him her story, and she's like, yeah, but that won't apply to anyone. He's like, literally, I know 5 or 6 people right now that would relate to that story. And those are the people who are going to nest in your mustard tree. And I was like, oh, that's what it means. So it's like the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, and it grows inside of you, and then you express, you know, your testimony and your transformation and your story and everything that you've gone through, and then that will attract certain people to come and nest in your presence, in your life, you know, in your being, and it's like, because they can grow from you. So for example, my clients are nesting in my mustard tree. Like they are learning from me, they're growing from me, they're connecting with me, and it is growing them and it's helping them. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then this is the first time ever I've had bullet points for any of these videos, because it's on a text message, or I took a note. It's in my notes app, but I can't open that while I'm recording a video or it'll stop the video. So I had to write it down on here because there are 3 things that I had to hit on. And the last thing he talked about the Bible, and he's like, man, it's hard to live the life that the Bible tells us. You know, it's challenging, but those are the instructions that God has given us. Like those are the instructions on how to live before we leave this earth. And he's like, life is short. Like life is short, and we got to understand that Like what we do on this planet has an impact on our eternity. And I love something my pastor said a while ago, that life is short compared to eternity. Life is short compared to eternity. And if we all knew that every single thing that we did in this life would impact our forever, would impact the rest of eternity, and that would determine the kind of life that we live for the rest of our lives, for the rest, not the rest of our lives, for the rest of eternity, we would take life, we would be much more intentional about what we do. We would be much more selective on the things that we do. But we all, I feel like, mostly kind of live like, hey, it's all good. I'm going to do whatever, because it feels good now. And I struggle with that. And so I'm trying to overcome that. And it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. But it's just like, wow, what are the odds? What are the odds that, you know, this guy who had a deep conversation with a few weeks ago, I didn't even know he went to Fearless until yesterday. And then I go there today and he's there, and we have this conversation where he talks about the mustard seed. He talks about us needing to die for him, just like he died for us. And then talking about the instructions before we die, before we leave this earth. So super, super powerful. And it's just crazy because, yeah, the dying for him, really, that's intense. Like, Jesus died for us, and we need to die for him. We need to kill the old versions of ourselves and step into the version that he created us to be. And, you know, that's a challenging experience. You know, it's like we have to go through a metamorphosis almost. You know, if you look at, you know, a caterpillar, like a caterpillar crawls around on the ground, and then, you know, it goes into this cocoon, into this tight space, this super tight, uncomfortable space, and it literally goes through this transformation, like this metamorphosis, and it comes out a butterfly. And the crazy thing is, like, once a butterfly exists, it never lands on the ground again. It's always landing on trees or branches or flowers or bushes or leaves or whatever. And so it's like it literally leaves its old life behind. It spent its whole life crawling on the ground in the dirt on the lowest level. And then it went through this metamorphosis that allowed it to live in the sky, allowed it to fly, allowed it to soar. And it went from this, you know, thing that looks like a slug to a freaking one of the most beautiful insects on the planet. And I feel like that is what God is doing from us. He's taking us from crawling on the ground and transforming us, metamorphosizing us into this beautiful, incredible thing that we were born to be, into our own versions of butterflies. And it's just like, it's so powerful, it's so incredible, it's wonderful, it's amazing, and it's mind-blowing. And I feel like that's the transformation I'm going through right now. And it's the most amazing journey I've ever been on in my life. And it's the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. And I'm so freaking excited about my life that last night I couldn't even sleep, because I'm just sitting there for hours thinking about my life and everything that's happening and the miracles that God is, you know, doing in my life. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. This is unbelievable. This is incredible. This is a miracle. And I feel so alive. I feel so inspired. And, you know, I'm talking to that guy, and he's like, you know, I want to be in a place where people are real. You know, it's like you ask someone, how was your week? And they're like, oh, it was amazing. And he's like, no, that's not real. You know, and I was like, you know, it's interesting, because he asked me how I'm doing. And I was like, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because, you know, he said, like, people don't have those weeks. And I'm like, I feel like I had that week. Like, you know, I go through things, but the thing is, I feel really great, because I'm giving it to God. I'm surrendering it to God. So you really can have amazing days every day. It just depends on your level of surrender. You know, are you willing to give those emotions to God? Are you willing to give that stress to God, that lack of control to God, that fear to God? You know, or do you want to carry it around? Because it's you carrying it around that makes bad days. It's you giving it to him that makes good days. Like, you want to have a good day? Give all your stress, give all your worries, give all your fears, give all your doubts, give all your negative emotions to God. If you want to have a bad day, keep it yourself. So the best days that you have are the days when you give it all to God. The worst days you have are the days when you keep it to yourself. You're not meant to carry that weight. You're not meant to fight that battle. You're meant to give that to God and allow him to fight it and allow him to carry it. And so it's just about letting go of the stress, letting go of the pain and the fear, and actually giving it to God. But you have to have a certain level of faith to truly give it to him completely. And when you do, it's amazing. So, yeah, so cool. Yeah. So that's all.